We are never truly lost. Well, okay, sure. Maybe we get turned around for a few days in the woods, where life just feels like it's getting the best of us and everything's going wrong. And I'm Mike Martin, and I've stood right where you're standing, lost, beaten down, like nothing's ever gonna change. And that's why I built this camp. And that's why I'm inviting you to join me and all the members of this wild community. Because you know what, friend? It does get better. So come along with me into the wild and let me show you this awesome, unique skill set that lays within inside of you. With help from the land, we're going to unlock the steward that's inside each and every one of us that will lead the way out of the darkness and into healing. Here at the Camp of Healing on Project Mindfully Outdoors.
Another edition of Project Mindfully Outdoors. It's a new beginning. It's a Monday morning, and here we are. I'm greatly appreciative that you decided to tune in and join me. And as always, if you don't know yet, I'm your host and your guide, Mike Martin. So over the weekend, I took a little bit of an absence to wrap up and put the finishing touches on one of those new projects that I told you I was working on. And the fact that it's done, and I'm so relieved about that alone, but I'm extremely excited to be able to share it with you. What it is a series of guided meditations, and it's going to be called Letters from Camp. Before it gets released in a generalized, stream, I wanted to take an opportunity to share it with you guys first. And what I decided to do was take it and use it as a part of the kickoff for the new subscription-based community that we're building, which is the Camp of Healing, the Camp of Healing powwow. And when you join for only $5.99 a month, you not only get exclusive interviews, commentary, articles, and meditations, but you also get a live monthly Q&A powwow with me, as well as exclusive access to letters from camp. So check that out, and I hope you join. I hope you decide to support me. If this podcast has been helping you out, it would be a great avenue for you to check out as well. Now, to transition back into today, because today is going to be a lot of fun. We're building on a trilogy, in fact. Over the course of the first year of doing the podcast, I hooked up with and really have built this really good friendship and working relationship with Coach Mike Forrester. And, we're going to continue that trilogy today. So on the flip side of this word from our sponsor, we're going to just jump right in. Another edition of Project Mindfully Outdoors. It's a new beginning. It's a Monday morning, and here we are. I'm greatly appreciative that you decided to All right, friends, this episode is brought to you by the Camp of Healing. That's right. This one's brought to you by Project Mindfully Outdoors, because we're celebrating the fact that I am so excited to release my first series of guided meditations entitled Letters from Camp. And right now, it's exclusively available when you join the brand new Healing Powwow community at projectmindfullyoutdoors.com. When you join, it's only $5.99 a month, and not only do you get exclusive access to Letters from Camp, but you also get unseen and unreleased videos, interviews, and there's even a monthly digital powwow where you
Mike, we tried this a few weeks ago, had all kinds of technical difficulties.
Yes, we did. Oh my word, man. Construction in my area. So that's fortunately not an issue today. So looking forward to rolling in our conversation, man.
Most definitely. I mean, I was fired up, and it kind of pushed me into a little bit of a lull, into a little canyon, if you will, where I really felt like everything was just too much and I needed to take a break. And it took a minute to accept that I hit that point. And, get into that. If I would have let it go and just continued to roll down, I feel it would have triggered a lot of the unhealthy behaviors and patterns that I worked so hard to rewrite. And I think that's something that allowing yourself the understanding and the grace to acknowledge that break is needed is kind of challenging to do, because we all get caught up in wanting to just keep going and going and going.
Yeah. But here's the amazing thing, man. We're not expecting, well, sometimes we expect ourselves to be perfect. And so it's like, nope, you're always up, 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 up. It's not realistic. We look at other people and it's like, do you give them grace to live, to have those moments like you're talking about, where it's like, hey, let me take a break and recharge, just get my bearings. The important thing is like you did, when you look at yourself, being able to say, hey, I need to detach and just recharge, break away from what's been going on. Because we do need those times to just get our bearings, to recalibrate. And otherwise it's like, dude, you start backsliding, things get rough and you break trust. I mean, I've done that so many times, where it's, I don't stop, where I should. And I've got that voice where it's like, hey, you're burned, you're spent, like stop. And then when I don't, just like you were talking about, I'll slip into being, the Hulk. And yeah, nobody around me likes it when that happens. So, it's better to be cautious and to give ourselves that space. And hats off to you for, recognizing it and catching that.
It's not easy. It's really not, because we don't practice looking at ourselves in that context. We practice looking at ourselves in the results. What is it that we're doing and where is it getting us? We overlook it's too easy for us to overlook the fact that we get to a point where the wheels are just spinning in the mud.
Yeah. And once you're there, it's like, it's a bigger effort to, stop, get back on track and everything else. It's like, I should be a little more observant and actually take action when I'm getting that nudge. But, too often it's like, no, I can push through. I can do this. And
Right.
you just try and keep trudging. And it's like, oops, I think I went too far. I did too much. But I think that's where, like having people in your life, other men, that it's like, hey, are you doing okay? That check in and call you out. I think that's the important factor, is when you've got that community, those group of men around you that know you, and you've given them permission to actually, speak into your life and call you out on that kind of stuff.
Definitely. The more that you get comfortable with yourself and you open up, you bring people in, but you actually let them get to know you, the stronger that it becomes, or the easier it becomes for you to listen to other people's input and know that the filter that you're using is strong enough to identify the truth within what they're saying.
Well, and the amazing thing is, like your children are still watching you as you're, healing, growing, working through and finding the best version of you, right? You're serving yourself. Your kids are still watching. And by them seeing you take a break and go, nope, I need to, just step back. You're setting an example for them that gives them permission to be able to do that when they get to that kind of place. Like, hey, I'm burned, let me step back, or, I'm burning the candle at both ends.
And that's exactly what I was guilty of doing.
Yeah.
And to realize, hey, now is the time. I've got to listen to myself. It's not a selfish thing to do that. It's actually a very important part, but it gets overlooked because as we're going down these trails of healing and growth, we go, man, we got that new practice in our back pocket. I could pull that out and I'm good. I could just keep chugging along. Meanwhile, you're not noticing that the speedometer is slowly dropping. The fuel gauge is running out. And before you know it, you're sitting on the side of the freeway out of gas. And, it's a long walk to get to the gas station.
Yeah. You better hope you've got like a gas can. So,
right.
So how did you discern? How did you say, like, man, this is just too much and I need to step back? Like, what were the signs, or like, what were you feeling that caused you to make that decision?
It just felt like something was off. Like I was just completely disconnected and, really more or less phoning in everything. There was the intent of, hey, with the things that I truly value and I truly want to apply myself to, mentally the idea is there, but the mental action and the physical action was really sluggish to have a response.
Yeah. So how did you go about, like, saying, okay, I'm going to stop, and then go about, regaining your energy to, like, where you felt like you were back in that place of being functional and re-engaged? How did you recharge?
I think it was a matter of kind of assessing the priorities, the things that I could sit down for a minute, and not so much letting go of the priorities. You've got to earn a living, so that had to stay there. Of course, with my kids, the interaction, the connection, that is of the utmost importance. That stays. And then I looked at, the creative aspect of my life, and realizing that that was really where a lot of the stress was coming from.
Mm.
And being able to sit down and look at it without putting stories to it, or especially the narrative of just one more. If I just take one more step, something's going to happen. You know, I'm going to get to that next plateau. It was a matter of realizing it's going to be there regardless. You know, if you stop and you refuel, which for me was simply going out in the woods for a while, you know, picking up a pad of paper, getting back to the simple basics of things that I was really slacking on and letting go of because I had to keep the momentum going. You can pick up that momentum at any time. You know, you may have to start crawling again before you're running, but that's okay. You got to give yourself that permission to understand that if you keep running, you're going to fall down. If you take a break and get some water, you're going to re-energize, rejuvenate yourself, and you'll get fired up in the creative or the professional or whatever family it is, whatever, you know, whatever that one stressor is that's bogging you down. When you get recharged and you go to tackle it again, you're going to come back fresh with new ideas. You're going to make that forward progress again. You're going to pick up where you feel like you're slacking and letting off.
Yeah. One other thing that I've found that gets me to a place where I'm feeling burned out is when I've got something that I've been putting off and putting off and putting off, and now it's just like, oh my gosh, I'm just dreading it, you know, because it's like I know it's hung around, and you know, it could be because let me clarify that. It's generally because I don't have full clarity about the next step with it is why I'm procrastinating on it. But those things that I'm procrastinating on then build and build and build. And it's like that energy that I'm using to push it off is what's drawing up from, you know, my base energy. So that for me is something where I'll look and go, is there something on my tasks that I'm just ignoring, you know, pretending and hoping it'll go away. And, you know, just looking at that as well as, you know, what is it that I've taken on? Because if I've taken on something that's outside of my area, you know, of what I'm proficient at, and it requires me to focus more, you know, just to expend that energy, then, you know, that may be where I need to go, hey, let me delegate this, or, you know, maybe this isn't the right thing to be done at this time. And making sure that also, like, I have a morning routine and an evening routine that help me stay grounded, connected, and clear. And if I'm not, you know, practicing those, you know, and dude, there's days where it's like, oh my gosh, I just need sleep. Fantastic. But when it becomes the habit, then I get into a place where I'm not, you know, almost like filling up the tank of your car, right? I'm not doing that, so I don't have anything to run on. So that's where I'll get burned out as well.
See, and I feel I was probably letting that procrastination get in there and add to the stress. And it was procrastination based on things that I didn't know. So I knew how to figure it out. I'd have to go and do some research and, you know, dig into some things. But it was hard finding the time. It was really hard to manage, you know, the day job, the other responsibilities, the other things that I value and enjoy, along with learning these other things. Then on top of that, finding the time to incorporate them.
Right.
So forcing myself to pump the brakes a little bit gave me that opportunity to not only go back and pick up a couple of new tricks, but also incorporate and implement all these things that were fueling the procrastination. Though, like, you know, if I just took the time and did this, but where am I going to find the time? I wanted it bad enough that I had to just stop and make the time. You know, you look down when you're driving, you realize the fuel gauge is getting low, the low fuel light comes on. It's telling you you better make time to stop and get gas or you're going to have problems a couple miles down the road. And that was what taking that break was for me, because I had all the ideas. I seen the low fuel light. I knew the service station was there. I knew I could walk in and do my thing. And, to touch back on the idea of that fear that we're losing time and momentum when we stop. When I incorporated all these different things that I needed to do, when I needed to put the nozzle in there and just pump the damn gas and get it over with, I was shocked to see that it's really not a loss of momentum. It actually helped push me forward. And I haven't even really gotten back on the freeway yet.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes we're so focused on doing that we don't realize the pace that we're moving at is so slow. And then just taking the break like you've, talked about, like you did, then re-energizes us so we can jump back in and we're going at a faster pace than we were before because we have that energy. It's almost like, if you go out walking and you don't take water with you, you're going to start slowing down. Whereas if you just go out, have stations along the way with water, you can at least recharge, and then you get to keep going and you're going at a faster rate and you'll go further. But without those, dude, we just end up in a mess. So as you ended up, you took your break, you're collecting your thoughts and everything. Was it clear to you when it was okay to say, hey, I'm jumping back in, or was it out of necessity to jump in?
I think when I decided it was time to pump the brakes, I knew that I needed to set a new start date. I needed to set a deadline. And without that, it would have been really hard to get back in the pattern. And, during the break, there's still facets of, the behind the scenes operations that I haven't stopped with, because they worked hand in hand with other things that I'm still trying to do, that I'm still trying to work on, personally. Like, for example, having a conversation to record for an upcoming episode ties hand in hand with the ongoing practice of improving upon my mindset and the way I deal with social anxiety. And therefore that, when I first set out to do that, it was something that then I set a call of action to myself that it was going to remain important no matter what. And yeah, the podcast itself gives me a unique experience and a unique way to do that. So it had to stay. And then obviously there was lots of, behind the scenes work on the website. And there was also a lot of stuff that I realized was pent up creatively that needed to come out, which made its way into understanding conservation of self. And that was where I really figured out, writing that about 3 days after I announced I was taking this break. So at that point, I realized, this isn't a vacation. This is just changing the surroundings of what I'm doing so that I can get back into the most important aspects of it to me.
Yeah, makes sense. So are you doing anything differently to keep yourself, at a higher level? So you're not risking burning out?
I'm still kind of restructuring that. That's still an ongoing evolution. and figuring out different ways to keep things simple. I feel like for me personally, I risk burnout in every facet when things get complicated. You know, ever since this part of the journey of my life, of my story, if it's not simple, it's uncomfortable. And it takes a lot more energy to work through it. So keeping things small and breaking everything down into bite-sized chunks is where the efficiency and really all the outcome happens. If I can't do that, then, or I feel like everything's falling around and kind of making all those chunks feel too big, then I kind of cocoon and I feel like I can't function correctly. So it takes a matter of diving in, getting a sledgehammer, and breaking things back into smaller pieces. Then I'm back on track.
So curious, are you using anything as far as like whether physical or digital to like keep track of your tasks and break them down into steps, almost like a to-do list or goals or anything like that? Are you creating lists like that to get it out of your head and onto something?
You know, the notepad on my phone is jam-packed with things. And I find that really a lot of my creative aspect of things with Project Mindfully Outdoors is a lot like my music writing process used to be. When it comes, and it's got to be acknowledged or it just kind of sits there. So back then, it was basically carrying around a notebook and pen all the time. And when things came out, I'd write them down and then go back and fine tune everything. Nowadays, with the convenience of modern technology, it goes on my phone, which I actually found works a little bit better because no matter where I'm at, I don't have the awkward notebook. Just pull out my phone and jot down a couple of words and go back and play with it later. So yeah, I've definitely got this system that's probably unique to me, and to try to explain it to somebody, they sound like, man, you're so cluttered and disorganized, but it's all about finding what works for you. Mm-hmm. And then in learning how to improve that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know for me, it's like I'm similar to you in that I like will get things out. Even when I'm driving, I'll take like a digital note. I'll ask my wife, hey, can you put on, like I don't know what the program is called, but it's literally like you dictate into the phone, and then later I can take it and put it into, the Evernote where I process things. I'll just kind of store it and then I'll filter it, where it's like, okay, is this something I need to do now? Is this a later? Is this something I can delegate to somebody? And that way, for me personally, and I know I'm a more analytical than I am creative. I know you're on the creative side. So that's where I'm like, you're going to process things differently. But yeah, for me, it's like, I need to get it out and, documented, and then analyze and process and go, okay, yes, this needs to be done now, or this is a someday kind of thing. So yeah, I get the idea of getting it out of your head. So that's why I was wondering about that.
Yeah. And, one thing that I found ever since I moved into, just outright writing as opposed to music, and I got the website going, that's a wonderful place for me to be able to just jot some things down on a draft and, go back and play with later. And I probably got gigs upon gigs of half-written stuff that end up formulated into something. And, that was really helpful as far as getting conservation of self together, was I had all these different notes and, little posts and articles and stuff that I was able to center things on, and then kind of reflect upon different parts and different stages of the journey. Maybe even look outward into find, a character that I could interweave the stories to make a more broad, or to paint a better picture with. And it's been a fun thing to put together. It's been a fun little project to work on, kind of spur of the moment.
That's cool. So what does it look like from here? Like, I know you said like, as far as regaining your creativity and everything like that, do you feel like you've now got your clear direction?
Well, I look back at when we had tried to get together recently, we had those technical difficulties in comparison to sitting down tonight. And I think, I feel fired up about it now, as opposed to a couple weeks ago where I was like, man, it's just another damn interview. I'm just, making more content. Yeah, I get to talk to Mike and everything, but man, it's just the grind. Now it's like fun and exciting again. And that's where I flourish. That's where I'm really at my best, is kind of like being on the water, having, the right lure and things just firing up. And it's how it's just how it works for me.
So it's not like things are any different, right? I mean, it's the same situation. How did you change your perspective or your emotions about it? Because, you and I are still talking. And
right.
So now you're excited about it. 2 weeks ago, it was like, I like Mike, but I don't want to do this. So what changed there?
I think it was kind of getting back to the basics, because like I said, I just let things spin and spin and spin. And I let the basic things slack. So taking the wheel off and having nowhere else to go but dive back into the basic things that have always been fueling, spending more time in my journal, more time in books, more time on the water, things that I was losing time because I was stuck in front of a computer all day. And that was another part of it that was an interesting change to look back at, is, the last time we talked, I was doing all of this off of my phone. So it was always mobile. And now, I'm sitting here in the blind and I've got things set up, working off of a computer, actually tying myself down to things. I think was a drastic shift that I had to ease into. I had to give myself some space to realize that I'm doing things differently, and I'm doing things in a more of a fine tooth and comb professional manner.
Yeah.
Maybe allowing the evolution or the mindset to shift.
Yeah. Or to transition from what it was to now.
Right.
Have you ever created like an ideal week, like a schedule for that?
I've always had my little map as far as the way that my week works out, which there's that balance. It's like, I'm going to do this at such and such time. I've got this day set aside to do whatever task it is. And I've always felt content in having that knowledge of what's coming next, because it just made things simple. So I haven't veered from that. I've learned how to refine it and how to make it a little bit more clear. And I think that that's something that's going to help me as I go forward.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, like, within that ideal week, if, simplified, keeping things simple seems to be where you flourish, right? So I'm wondering if it's something within your ideal week where you're just like, hey, I'm out tossing a lure. I'm out on a hike, because like you recharge off of being outdoors, no surprise. But I'm wondering if that needs to be something where it's like, hey, I am being intentional and taking this time. I'm keeping it simple and just saying outdoor time, whatever the case is, But if that will give you that excitement, that stirring where you have a perspective of, hey, these things that I'm doing, I get to do them. I don't have to do them. If that is the basis that fuels like that change of your viewpoint. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and that's something that I hadn't lost sight of, even though, I'm in front of a computer more now, really being intentional about the process and things like that instead of, out and about talking into my phone on my truck and putting things together. I haven't lost sight of those core values, getting out there, hunting, fishing, camping, hiking, all that stuff. But what has changed a little bit is now that my youngest son is old enough to speak up and say, hey, I'm going with you this time. I want to tag along. And that's been a lot of the stories that I really enjoyed sharing lately in these is how him and I have spent a good chunk of, our time together one-on-one up and down the river chasing catfish. And the experience of going from, this is all about me being out here by myself to now I'm the guide and this is about you. Where I should be fishing, in my mind, in reality, I'm pulling fish off the hook. I'm retying lines. I'm unsnagging snags. I'm doing all these different things, but I'm also realizing how magical that is for me. And, how we get to share that connection in the outdoors.
Yeah. That I'm sitting here going like, dude, there's almost like a grieving process, I think, in some of it where it's like, where it was just your time, but there's also like that celebration, right? Where it's like, dude, I get to do this with my son, because not everybody gets to, and that's not always been the case. He wants to go with you, dude. That speaks volumes. That's like the big celebration. You got gratitude with that, right? But it's also, you're not able to just go, by yourself. So it may have to be something where it's like you kind of say, hey, this week I'm going to go do it myself, and then next 2 weeks I'll do it with my son, just so you have still some of that time. But dude, make sure you're capturing those. That's awesome. I mean, especially when he's initiating, hey, I want to come with you, Dad. That's amazing, man. That speaks volumes.
It's, actually, recently I had a conversation with Daniel Moody, and we were talking about the exact same thing about, that practice of realizing that each time that you get to experience, or, that he has to go along, is one less time in the future that it's going to happen. It's one less time, and you're never going to experience it the same way. And it helps you to transition into that, kind of move past that grieving, I guess you could say, of it's not always just about me going out by myself now. The world has expanded. The world has changed. And I've got to embrace this, because if I don't embrace it now in that moment, it's never going to look the same that it would have if I would have went with it. So yeah, it's happy, it's exciting, and it's an amazing experience, and it helps you both to grow. You're not only getting to learn and practice those like leadership and mentoring qualities, but at the same time, you're the student, because you're learning all these different experiences that you're watching them have.
Yeah. I had heard it put as far as, like the times that we have. So, the person that I was listening to had said, yeah, I've got like 3 years before, I believe my parents will pass away, something along those lines. But while 3 years sounds a lot, they were only seeing them once, maybe every 9 to 12 months. So in essence, they've got 3 to 4 visits left. And when we look at, how much time there is versus how many opportunities there are within that time, you look at your son, you're like, I may have until he's 18, we'll say, right? And then, if you're taking him once a month, then it's like, okay, you've got, X number of opportunities. And, always keeping that in mind of how many times do I have, or how many experiences do I have to create these memories versus the duration or the length of time, can really change how we, value or, show up within those opportunities.
See, and I think based on that, when you think about it from the aspect of, I'm a single father. So my visits and my time with my children are scheduled. It's not an everyday thing. I get them every other weekend, and I get to see them here and there in between. So it kind of, I feel, can be one of those challenging things, because I know I've had to fight the challenge. I've had to fight this, like, man, it's all or nothing. I've got to be there or I can't be. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And finding that balance, and especially once you get the understanding that this is just the way life is, you still get to have an impact, but it's not on your terms, and that's okay. Because it's not about the terms that child is going to care about. It's the fact that you're there. Were you there? Did you give your all? Did you do your best? And once you get those core things down, then it's like, when the extra time happens, like, when he wants to go on an off day and go fishing, you're able to leave that, man, this was supposed to be my day to go fishing by myself thing, kind of like, on the side of the road. It's like, yeah, let's go. This is awesome. This is great, because I get that extra time with you. And, I feel like a lot of the time, a lot of fathers miss out on that, because it's, it gets back to that question of just how much of an impact you actually get to have. So if you're not feeling as if you're given that full opportunity, then you kind of hold a lot of things back. It's like, why put the extra effort in there? And you lose sight of the fact that it's that extra effort that becomes, the sugar on top of the cereal, or on top of the sprinkles on top of the ice cream, I guess, because it's what makes their experience. With the help of copenotes.com, you can turn your smart device, your phone, into the most powerful tool in your mental health journey. That's right, when you sign up at copenotes.com, you'll receive randomly timed text messages that will help you to train yourself towards the most positive line of thinking. Just visit copenotes.com and use promo code Project Outdoors to save 10% when you sign up today. Terms and conditions do apply. And those are the things that they remember.
Here's the crazy thing for me, Mike. I mean, my kids are now 28 to 21, all four of them, right? And so back when they were, in their tweens and young teen years, dude, all we could afford was to go camping. And you can't imagine how much I was frustrated and ticked off and felt insecure and inadequate about, we're going camping. This is the best I can do. You don't measure up. Why can't you be a real dad? And I'm sitting there going, if I was a real man, I would be taking my kids to like Disneyland or some amazing place. Dude, I'll be honest, my kids had the best time and still have amazing memories from those camping trips where I was ticked off at myself and just, steamed and mad. And they'll sit there and talk about, remember the time we picked up the frogs? And I'm like, frogs, really? It's almost like when we see our kids and they're like having more fun with the box than the toy that we bought them, and you're just like, but I think if we're listening to our children and capturing those opportunities that are there and what excites them, we're going to be able to really, see those memories where it's important to our children, the ones they're going to cherish. It'll really start stacking up, man. And it'll be that childhood that they see as amazing, where despite our feelings, I'm unable to do X, Y, and Z, so I don't feel like I have the worth, despite our feelings, they will have that amazing childhood and all those memories and experiences because we were there and present with them doing the best we could at that time. So, I mean, it's a matter of looking at our kids and what's important to them, not what's important to us. Now, that doesn't mean that, if my kids are going, hey, we want ice cream, and it's like, okay, look, you got to eat dinner, you can't have ice cream then. I'm not saying, we spoil the child, but I am saying let's pay attention to what's important to them and what they're interested in, and see how we can create amazing memories out of that, along the way for them to talk about down the road when they're older.
I feel like that actually ties into probably one of the most important things that this healing journey has taught me, is this concept that Epictetus talks a lot about, where, I was going to go there anyway at some point, where you don't, in fact, even Seneca and Marcus Aurelius and all of them talk about it. You don't crave after things that you don't have. And when you talk about, memories like that and experiences like that, is, you hold yourself to this bar where if you're not reaching the standard, man, I'm a failure. But in reality, your kids never had those vacations experience in the first place before that idea was in your head that you're beating yourself up, that you were beating yourself up about. So if they never had it before, they don't have anything to gauge it upon and be like, man, this camping trip sucks because, I'm imagining what Disney World really feels like. But in reality, looking back on it now, they're like, man, those frogs were the coolest thing in the moment because you took us somewhere and we did something.
Well, here's the sad thing, man. When we finally got to the point of going to Disney World, I was so focused on how much we spent for the trip and for the tickets and everything that I was like, we must spend all day, every day at this park, and locked it out. And it was like, people were just so exhausted that it was, it wasn't as enjoyable as it could have been if we had just taken it moment by moment, enjoyed where we were at in that present time, rather than dad has this expectation and we must, squeeze every ounce of enjoyment out of the money I'm spending. I've learned the hard way, and my children along with me. but you can do the right thing the wrong way And then you can do other things that, just are a home run. And, despite our belief that we have to spend a ton of money, sometimes it's just the fact of being present and with them and doing something that's not in our everyday life that means the most to our kids.
I feel it's holding on to those simple, basic values, the simple, basic aspects of whatever it is that you're trying to do. They keep you grounded. They keep pulling you back into the moment. And there's so many different opportunities within everyday life, the world outside, to practice doing these things, where whether it's practicing gratitude or just focusing on breathing and centering yourself on something. We all do these things. It's okay. You got to allow yourself to learn that it's okay to bring yourself back to the moment and whatever that practice looks like for you, because that's where you start to really value what it is that you can contribute to a situation. And I think that's where, as a dad and as, trying to be the most impactful and the best mentor, the best male figure within your child's life, I think that's where that all really stems from.
And the one thing that I've seen for my children, as I've worked on me, it's created a space for them to feel safe and to, almost have permission for themselves to step out and do stuff and express what they're actually interested in. And instead of just feeling like they have to say what I'm interested in or what they think I'd be interested in, they can share, hey, I would love to go do, like go to the pet store. Like, why would you want to go to the pet store? Because it's important to them. They like cats or dogs, whatever the case may be, but they have space to express themselves where they feel safe. And so as you and I heal and we step into the healthier version of ourselves and, are creating like that area where they can speak, without fear of repercussion or judgment, and it changes it. I've seen this with my wife. I've seen this with my kids. And, man, I'm more excited about it, now than, before, when I was like, no, we must do it this way and trying to hold things with an iron fist. Now it's like, to see my kids, how they are and who they are. So
I think that concept of the iron fist has a lot to do with a lot of the cycles that we grow up in, and that saying, I don't want you to turn out like I did. But losing sight of the fact that in order to achieve that goal of having them, not turn out and go down some of the paths that we have to break those cycles within ourselves. And they learn that. And that provides, obviously, the safe space and the environment for expression. But it also benefits both of you because it's building that sense of self. It's strengthening the soul. And it's just, it's an overall good feeling that as it happens, it's magical. And you're both watching and learning from each other, so you may as well make the most of it. Build a new cycle.
Yeah. I used to go so much of, I don't want to be like my parents. I don't want to do this. And I had no clear idea of where I wanted to go. It'd be like if you and I were in LA and I said, I didn't want to end up in Miami. There is still a whole lot of places to end up and they may not be desirable. It's like, hey, we could end up in Yuma. If I'm wanting to go skiing, Yuma is not it, right? You might want to be like, hey, I'd rather go to Breckenridge. When you talk about what you want rather than what you don't want, you're going to end up in a better place and, you know, have more clarity and be happier. But dude, I spent so much time, you know, just being adamant that I didn't want to be like my parents. I didn't want to do, you know, such and such. And I ended up there anyways, because I didn't know where I wanted to be. And so I think as we're expressing, you know, what our goals are, who we want to be, what we want our life to be like, talking with our family, you know, hey, what would you like to do? What do you see us doing, you know, together? Man, we can paint a great picture. And for me, that's actually an encouragement, you know, especially like when I'm talking with my kids or my 6-year-old grandson. And it's like, you know, for him, he's like, Legos. I want all these Legos. And I'm like,
Yes.
yep, I'll be holding the book open for you as you build the Millennium Falcon or whatever he's after, you know, that he's wanted. I've wanted this all my life. I'm like, 6 years. Yep, I got you, buddy.
Exactly.
You know, it came out 3 months ago.
And, you know, I think to build on that idea, though, is we're all inevitably taught the things that our parents are taught. And to say over and over to yourself, I don't want to turn out like my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And then finding yourself there is because you're a product of what you think. And when that's the narrative that you build, that's the outcome. Your mind inevitably makes all those thoughts reality. So if you change the speech pattern within yourself, and that's what I spend a lot of time in the understanding of conservation of self talking about, is this idea that it's trial and error. You know, you're built with these principles that you're taught. You've got to test them and explore them. And all the while you build this inner dialogue that shifts toward a more productive and more healthy pattern that starts to break those cycles that are maladaptive or that you're trying to get away from. And that was the same way that it worked with conservation of the land and everything else. You know, it's all set up in a system now with a fine tooth and comb and a pretty little bow, but it wasn't born that way. It was all trial and error. And by drawing on different facets of your experiences of your story, experiences from somebody else's story, things around us, we're able to understand that picture a little bit better. And then we're able to start breaking those cycles. I think it puts a hammer in your hand and you can start breaking all those different glass ceilings just because it triggers that different thought process.
Well, and it's not like we're not going to have our thoughts, right? But
right.
Would you rather have negative thoughts? Which, I mean, dude, I was a mix between Eeyore and Hulk. I can tell you my thoughts were not healthy. So do you want those kind of thoughts, or do you want thoughts that, you know, are going in a direction that you want to go? You know, do you want to be in a place where it's like you're enjoying your marriage, you're enjoying your time with your family, you have a job that you like? I mean, you know, you can have these things that you desire and the thoughts that support it, or you can have the thoughts where it's like, I'm a victim, my life sucks, and I don't want to be around anybody else that thinks like that, much less have that be me, because then I'm stuck with me. And for many years, that was who I was. You know, that was the thoughts that I produced and focused on. It is not a fun time. Believe me, choose the thoughts that you enjoy for the life you desire, and really let those just grow and flourish and be the focus of what you think about.
Well, yeah, the monkey mind is definitely going to throw all that stuff at you. We've got that, I guess, terrorist voice that loves to throw those negative thoughts in because its job is to protect us, right? And if we're telling ourselves we can't do something, we're not putting ourselves at risk. So it's coming to terms with that terrorist and turning him from the terrorist into the steward, that you get to take control of exactly what the narrative is, what those thoughts are. Then you get to start filtering your own words. And that all comes from those goals and those expectations that we set for ourselves. So if you set those in an achievable pattern, then you're building a ladder. And as you start to climb the ladder, those goals become higher and higher. That self-talk becomes better and better and better. And as a parent, as a mentor, or even just as a steward of yourself, the things that you project into the world are so much more healthy. And I feel like that's a place that we all want to get to.
I would say that I honestly, when I was in that negative mind, Mike, I don't know that I felt like I deserved it. You know what I mean? I wanted it.
Oh, absolutely.
I saw that you had that life, but I didn't believe that I was worthy of it. And so I think it's one of those of choosing what we focus on, believing that we're worthy of it. It's a lot of work, but dude, it's beyond worth it. Oh my gosh, man.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. I mean, look back at like where you've come from. Where you were probably wasn't where you wanted to be. I know for me, it wasn't where I wanted to be, but I felt like that was where I was stuck. And it's like when we put in that time, that effort, mentally, emotionally, and physically, dude, it pays dividends beyond what we can expect or even hope for. Because oftentimes we haven't dreamt of the things that are available to us because we just don't feel like we're worthy of it, that we can experience it. It's for other people, but not for me. And there's so much more to it than we can even imagine that you get out of it after you've done the work. I mean, it's so far and away, like, it's amazing.
It starts with that filter, regardless of what external people are telling you. It's that internal filter, because you've got to realize that worth, that value is inside of you. Whatever somebody else is telling you really doesn't matter, whether it's positive, whether it's negative. It's nice to hear the positive, and it reinforces where you're trying to go. Just like the negative is horrible to hear and it beats you backwards. You've got to develop this internal filter that funnels all the different verbiage that comes along with the stories and the sentences that you are allowing yourself to grip onto that run through your head. It's not easy. It's something that takes a lot of work and a lot of practice, but you pick like one simple little thing. I got out of bed today. That was a good job. I did it. And you start there. You do that over and over and over again, and it starts to expand.
Well, it's almost like you're building trust with yourself, right? In you doing those little things that will often just count as petty. Those little things carry a lot of weight, where we may just not be aware of it. When we don't do those things, we're lying to ourselves and we build distrust. Hey, you're not going to follow through with that. Like, why even try? But as we jump in and start doing them like you're talking about, like those smaller things, and we're doing them consistently and keeping the commitments to ourselves, we'll see that our perspective, our self-talk, and the what's the best way to put it? Like the fact that we actually get it done, the percentage of completion changes. Whereas before it may have been, you're not going to do this, and you don't follow through with it. You just, let it go. Now you're finishing it. You're a completionist. You are enjoying the fact that you're getting it done and it's successfully completed, whether it's just putting on your shoes and walking a half a mile, or, whether it's training for a 10K or whatever the case is. When you keep your word to yourself and you reinforce that trust, man, it just starts changing the way you take on everything.
It does. It's like we talked about when we flipped the script around and I was on your show, that keeping commitments to other people, that builds trust with them. It's a two-way street. If you build those little commitments and you keep them with yourself, you build the trust that you really never had with yourself. And, like we keep touching on, that's where the inner power is. That's the root, is that self-trust.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it can seem overwhelming. Like, it's like, I'll never get from where I'm at to there. Or, oh my gosh, there's so much work. You really don't know who I am. Like, it may have worked for you, but it won't work for me. But the truth is, anybody can get there. It's just a matter of sticking with it and giving yourself that opportunity. So it doesn't matter where you're at. It just matters whether you're going to start and keep at it and do your best. Not asking you to be perfect, just asking you to keep getting up and, going for it. And you and I have gone through, that in a number of things, and we'll continue going through that, because there's new things we're learning, both how to do, how to think, and how to feel. And as we, take on something new, it's uncomfortable. We're not doing it in the way we might expect, but as we keep practicing and give ourselves grace, in that, then we're going to make so much progress, and things just, it's like a snowball gathering snow, it just gets bigger and better. Unless it's chasing you, then that's probably not better. But in the full concept of it, life gets better, as you continue to take things on and you gain confidence. Like I didn't feel confident before. Now I do. Not necessarily that I'm going to do things the way I want, but I know that I'm going to get it done.
Exactly. So as we come toward the end of this, I don't know if I've had the opportunity to hit you with the fun question that I've developed after I get my guests nice and warmed up.
Hit me with it, Mike. What are we doing?
All right. So, Mike, from the road, the path, the trail of healing that you walked, leave us with some words of wisdom and inspiration.
Great question.
I love that question because I get all kinds of crazy reactions and responses, but the answers are amazing.
There's many facets to what I would share, but I would say let's start simple, because that's been a core tenet of what we've talked about tonight. One is give yourself grace. You're changing, and some days it'll work. Some days it won't work as well as you want, but give yourself grace to keep going through it and build that trust with yourself. And the second part I would say is don't do it alone, because, you may get tired along the way, but having somebody that's walking that journey with you that can encourage you and maybe be able to call you out or help you reassess and gain clarity is invaluable. And I think those two things really build a foundation to create success for achieving the life we want and becoming who we dream about, in this life.
No, I concur. I think that was very well said.
Appreciate it, my friend.
So on that note, I've got an even harder question for you.
What's behind door number 2? Is that what I'm drawing here?
Pretty much. We got to wrap this up with what you got going on and how to get in touch with you.
What do I have going on personally or on the business side of life?
Both.
All right. Right now, because I grew and did the hard work, I'm able to stand by my wife's side, where she is actually out of town right now, working to sell her mom's property. So she's got a lot on her platter, but I'm able to be at home supporting her, with our family, with me working, just encouraging her as she's going along. And I'll go out and join her shortly. But dude, to be able to walk alongside of my wife and her know, yeah, you've got my back, that's not something that was there before. So I'm really happy and grateful to be at this place and know that this is, someplace that my wife can just look at and go, yeah, we're in this together. Business wise, so I'm doing the men's coaching, also doing podcast coaching. So I just surprise, I love working with people. So, it's one of those of that's what I've been really blessed with, is being able to work with, other men as far as life coaching, and then both men and women as far as on the podcasting side. If they're looking to launch a podcast or grow. So, yeah, that's what's going on the personal and business side. And then as far as getting in touch with me, best way is to go to hicoachmike.com. So hicoachmike.com. And, if you're like going, hey, I believe that there's a better life. I know I'm not where I want to be. Go ahead and book a call and let's talk, because, having a conversation where it's like, this is where I'm at, I don't see another way, or, hey, I know there's something, but I'm just missing it. Having somebody to be able to look at where you're at and encourage you, and, to be able to equip you as well. Dude, it's life-changing. I don't know how I did it for as long as I did it so dysfunctionally, but I do not want to go back. So I'm continuing to push forward. And that's why I have mentors as well. People that coach me, is because I'm not at the place I fully want to be. And I know there's more things out there to learn. So, yeah, if you want to connect, and then if you like listening to podcasts, like Mike said, he's been a guest on mine. You can check out Living Fearless today. And, yeah, just know you're not alone, and this is not the life that you're relegated to. So.
Perfect. So, yeah,
Thank you.
another great conversation. I think it was probably like round 5 or 6 by now.
I don't know, man. I love getting together and just chatting. Dude, what I'm really looking forward to is when I get to come up your way and actually go fishing to catch a fish rather than going hiking with a rod and reel, so.
Oh, most definitely. I'm looking forward to putting that together. I hope we can soon.
Yes, absolutely. I'm like, what is up your way? Bass or trout or what?
I'm a bass guy, but there's trout throughout Michigan. Like I said, me and my son have been chasing catfish all summer. I'm up for whatever.
In catfish, you just stick your hand down in a hole, right? And I'm not doing that part.
No, actually with his technique of just dropping the line in and they run to it, you would think it is, but we don't noodle.
Yeah, that's how I'm like,
we
nope.
actually get out there and we fish, and that just happens to be what's out there. So it's been a lot of fun.
Very cool. Yeah, we will definitely have to do that. And I'm looking forward to it, Mike.
I appreciate it, Mike. Thanks for the next chapter in this big old saga.
Thank you, my friend. Great time as always.
All right, my friends, that is it. That is all. That is the end. We have reached the end of yet another edition of Project Mindfully Outdoors. You know, fatherhood is a very important thing to both myself and Mike, and it's a common thread that a lot of us parenting can build these kind of relationships to get that insight, bounce ideas off somebody, and, you know, overall just get a shoulder to lean on when things are difficult. So open up about it. Don't be afraid to admit, you know, hey, I'm struggling with this right now, and I could use a little bit of help, because we all get there. And, you know, we all get intrigued enough by someone else's troubles to want to help and want to support. And I really think that, you know, honestly, we probably do that for the reason that it distracts us from our own problems. But, you know, regardless of whatever it is, it's all about that relationship, that community, tapping into the tribe for the power and the energy to get through. And until next time, get out there in the wild. That's where the stillness and the adventure lies. See ya. Hey friend, it's Mike. Before we get out of here, I gotta thank you again for coming and tuning in, subscribing to and liking the work that we do here at Project Mindfully Outdoors. And I've got to invite you, if you get any value out of this, swing over to the Letters from Camp page on our website and sign up for the Healing Powwow. Join that community and let's make a difference. Until next time, get out there in the wild. That's where the stillness and the adventure lies. See ya.